Most people think Africa is hot. They are right about most of it. But 8,200 feet above sea level in the Ethiopian Highlands, the temperature drops near freezing every night. Frost forms on the ground before sunrise, and the home that keeps a family warm through those nights has no heating system, no electricity, no insulation made by any factory. It is built from bamboo and the leaves of a plant called the false banana. It stands 12 meters tall. It lasts 80 years, and when the foundation begins to deteriorate, the entire structure lifts off the ground and walks to a new location. No modern building does that. No Mongolian jera does that. Only the Dorze home. The Mongolian steppe is known to be cold. The entire world knows Mongolian winters are brutal. What nobody told you is that the Ethiopian highlands experience frost and near-freezing nights regularly, and have for centuries. The Dorze people live in the Gamo highlands of southern Ethiopia at 8,200 feet above sea level. The Simien Mountains average 43 degrees Fahrenheit at night, year-round. In January and February, frost is common before sunrise. And Ethiopia also contains the Danakil Depression, the hottest inhabited place on Earth at over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, the same country. The hottest point on the African continent, and communities that developed one of the most sophisticated cold survival systems ever built. Both exist in Ethiopia. A survival system developed in conditions the world did not know existed is not less remarkable than the Mongolian one. It is more remarkable because the Dorze had no template, no global recognition of their cold, no outside world confirming what they were solving. They solved it anyway. And what they built has been standing for over 500 years. Picture it before you know what it is. A structure 12 meters tall, taller than a 3-story building, rising from the highland grass in a shape that resembles a giant beehive. Or, from the right angle, the head of an elephant. The entrance is a low opening, protected by a small porch. The walls curve inward to a conical peak, and the entire surface, walls, roof, the curve of the structure from ground to tip, is covered in the layered leaves of the Ancestral plant, overlapping like scales, each layer trapping a pocket of air beneath it. This is the Dorze home. Built from bamboo harvested within walking distance, woven into a structural framework by teams of 3 to 4 craftsmen over 2 weeks, then covered in Ancestral leaf thatching that creates natural insulation identical in principle to the felt layering of the Mongolian jera. The circular shape is not aesthetic, it is engineering. A circular structure distributes warmth evenly through the interior, no corners collecting cold air, no flat walls offering wind a surface to push against. The Mongolians arrived at the same geometry on the other side of the earth for the same reason. 2 cultures, no contact, one shape. Because physics does not negotiate. The bamboo framework flexes under wind load rather than resisting it. Under the weight of highland rain, bamboo bends and springs back without cracking. The Ancestral leaf layers create dozens of trapped air pockets through the roof structure. The same insulation principle as the compressed wool felt of the Mongolian jera. Different material, same physics, same result. Warmth retained, cold excluded. The home lasts 80 years, longer than most modern buildings in comparable alpine conditions. But here is the detail that separates the Dorze home from every other cold survival structure ever documented. When termites begin eating the base of the structure, the foundation that contacts the ground, the Dorze do not repair it. They do not abandon it. They lift the entire structure off its foundation and move it to a new location. The home walks. It becomes shorter with each move as the base is trimmed, but it remains fully functional. A family home that solves its own structural failure by relocating. I came across this fact for the first time reading an account of Dorze construction, and I read it twice before I believed it. A home that responds to damage not by being fixed or replaced, but by standing up and finding new ground. 80 years of life, multiple locations, built in 2 weeks from materials that grew nearby. No Western architectural tradition has produced anything comparable. But the building is only the first layer of how the Dorze survived the Highland cold. The second layer was what they wore, and what they discovered about clothing. A culture on the other side of the earth, discovered independently, centuries apart, in conditions they never knew they shared. It looks like a large white cotton shawl. Simple, unassuming, something you might assume was purely ceremonial. Wrap it around your body in Highland cold, and you understand immediately that it is not ceremonial at all. This is the gabi, a thick hand-woven cotton shawl worn in the Ethiopian Highlands as a full-body wrap. In the Gamo Highlands at 8,200 feet, the Dorze do not wear one gabi. They layer multiple gabis, each layer trapping warm air between the body and the cold, building what amounts to a portable personal insulation system from nothing but hand-woven cotton. The Mongolian steppe solution was identical. Wool garments layered in sequence, each chosen for a specific job, the outermost layer blocking wind while the inner layers held warm air against the body. Two systems, two continents, no contact. The same physics arrived at the same solution. The gabi carries one additional refinement that the Mongolian transcript documents for their own clothing: color as thermal management. The gabi is reversible, white side outward in sunlight, reflecting solar radiation to stay cool during highland days. Dark side outward in cold, absorbing available warmth from weak highland light. The Mongolian transcript notes, white felt reflected sun on brilliant winter days, while dark robes absorbed heat in weak light. The Dorze and the Mongolians, independently, understood that color is not decoration in a cold climate. Color is temperature management. The Dorze are also among the most skilled weavers in Ethiopia. Dorze woven fabric is denser than standard cotton cloth, not as a cultural expression but as a functional requirement. Fabric dense enough to resist highland wind. Fabric that traps air effectively between fibers. Fabric that has been engineered over centuries of living at 8,200 feet to perform in exactly the conditions where it is worn. I wore a gabi for the first time on an early morning in the Highlands when the temperature had dropped overnight and the air had that sharp quality that highland cold has. It feels thinner than the cold you know at sea level, somehow more direct. The gabi went on in layers, and within minutes, the cold outside the fabric was irrelevant. Not because it was thick, because it was designed. But clothing keeps the body warm while it moves. What the Dorze ate kept the body warm from the inside, and the food they chose follows the same thermal logic as the Mongolian diet, arrived at through completely different ingredients. The Mongolians survived highland cold on fat and protein, foods that slow digestion and generate sustained internal heat for hours after a meal. The Ethiopian highlands had different available ingredients and arrived at a different mechanism for the same outcome: slow-burning fermented carbohydrate. The foundational crop of the Dorze highlands is enset, the false banana plant, not the bamboo used to build their homes, a different part of the same landscape. 15 enset plants can feed one person for an entire year. The leaves thatch the home. The trunk is processed into kocho, a fermented flatbread that is calorie-dense, high in slow-digesting carbohydrate, and provides sustained energy across cold highland nights. Kocho is not cooked quickly. The fermentation process takes place in underground pits, the same principle as the underground food storage covered in Video 1, where enset is buried and left to ferment for up to 12 months before it becomes food. The earth itself is the processing system. The same earth that stabilizes temperature underground to protect stored food in the Sahel does the same work in the Ethiopian highlands. Different latitude, same physics. Alongside kocho, the highland diet includes injera, fermented teff flatbread. Teff is a grain that grows specifically at highland altitude. A cold climate crop developed for a cold climate diet, rich in iron and slow-burning complex carbohydrate. And teje, Ethiopian honey wine, fermented and warming, high in natural sugars that deliver rapid energy in cold conditions. The Mongolian herder drank fermented mare's milk for warmth and quick calories. The Ethiopian Highlander drank fermented honey wine. Different ingredients, same thermal logic. Fermentation creating a warming, calorie-dense drink suited to cold survival. The pattern across every culture that developed cold survival knowledge independently is the same. Food is not separate from warmth. Food is thermal management. Every meal is an act of temperature regulation. But food and clothing manage warmth during the day. What the Dorze did at night is where this survival system reaches its most human dimension. The central fire in a Dorze home occupies the same position as the stove in a Mongolian gyr, center of the circular structure, equidistant from every wall, heat radiating outward in all directions simultaneously. The circular geometry that makes the home aerodynamically efficient against highland wind also makes it thermally efficient from a central heat source. One fire, maximum coverage, no corners drawing heat away from where people are living. Eucalyptus burns hot and long. Ethiopia adopted eucalyptus in the late 1800s, and highland communities integrated it rapidly into fuel management because of those exact properties. Before eucalyptus, indigenous hardwoods and dried dung, the same fuel as the Mongolian steppe, kept highland fires burning. The fire is managed across the night the same way the Mongolian fire is managed. Coals are banked before sleep, pushed together, covered lightly, so that by morning the hearth still breathes. One breath on the coals, one piece of fuel, and the flame returns. Someone in the household always knows the sound of the fire, the soft rush of a steady burn, the change in sound that signals a fire pulling too much air, or too little. This knowledge is not written anywhere. It lives in the people who grew up beside that fire. The sleeping arrangement around it is not comfort. It is survival engineering. Elders and young children take the warmest positions, closest to the fire, sheltered from the entrance. Adults form the outer ring, closest to the cold air that enters at the low doorway, available to rise quickly if the fire needs fuel or the highland night brings something that requires attention. The Mongolian transcript documents the same arrangement exactly. Elders and small children took the warmest spots. Strong adults formed an outer ring. Two cultures on opposite sides of the earth. The same fire position, the same sleeping arrangement around it. Because the physics of heat and the vulnerability of the old and the young are the same everywhere. I spent a night in a highland home once and woke in the early hours to the cold. Not the cold of the sleeping area near the fire. That was still warm. The cold was coming from near the entrance, where the night air pressed through the low doorway. I moved slightly toward the fire and understood, without anyone explaining it, exactly why the arrangement was what it was. The cold finds the edge. The fire holds the center. You choose which one you sleep near. And the combined warmth of a family sleeping together inside a bamboo and inset structure raises the interior temperature of that space significantly above what the fire alone achieves. This is not cultural habit. It is thermodynamics. Body heat is a community resource. The Dorze understood that and built a home shaped to concentrate it. The Dorze home cannot be directly replicated in a suburban house. But what the Dorze home represents is being studied right now by the people who design buildings for a warming, then cooling, then unpredictable world. Architecture schools are publishing research on bamboo composite panels, the same insulation principle as the Dorze wall, as among the fastest-growing sustainable building materials globally. The circular geometry that the Dorze and the Mongolians independently arrived at is now appearing in passive house design, where eliminating corners reduces thermal bridging and improves energy retention. The inset leaf layering principle, multiple air pockets through a roof structure, is the foundational principle of modern cavity wall insulation. The knowledge existed at 8,200 feet in Ethiopia for 500 years before it appeared in a building science journal. The gabi principle is directly applicable today. Layering natural fibers, wool, cotton, linen in sequence, outperforms most single synthetic outdoor fabrics in sustained cold exposure. The outdoor apparel industry is currently moving back toward natural fiber layering after decades of synthetic dominance. The Dorze never stopped. The communal warmth principle is documented in modern energy efficiency research. Households that share sleeping spaces during the coldest months reduce heating costs by 15 to 25%. The Dorze did not need the research. They had the practice. And fermented complex carbohydrates, cocoa, injera, slow-digesting starches, provide 6 to 8 hours of sustained metabolic warmth. This is the mechanism behind current sports nutrition guidance on eating complex carbohydrates before cold exposure. African highland communities built this into every meal for centuries before anyone published a study on it. The world thought Africa was hot. Africa contains the hottest inhabited place on Earth and one of the most sophisticated cold survival systems ever built. Both are true. The Danakil Depression and the Dorze Highlands exist in the same country, the same continent that gave us the knowledge to survive extreme heat, gave us the knowledge to survive extreme cold. No continent on Earth has developed survival knowledge across a wider range of conditions. The Dorze home was not primitive. It was not simple. It was the product of 500 years of refinement by people who had no option of failure, who could not call for help, could not purchase a heating system, could not wait for a solution to arrive from somewhere else. They solved the problem completely, with bamboo, enset leaves, woven cotton, fermented food, and the understanding that warmth is not a product. Warmth is a practice. Modern comfort has made us forget that. The Dorze never did. And now you know what they knew. The next video covers 14 foods West African grandmothers stockpile that never expire, foods with shelf lives that make your pantry staples look fragile. That video is already up. 3 videos every week. Every one of them is something African grandmothers knew that the modern world is only now catching up to. If this knowledge belongs in more hands, share it. And if you want to be here when the next one drops, subscribe.